This week on Inside Athletic Training, we welcome in John Ursone, the Associate Director of Athletic Training for Stanford University Baseball. Enjoy the show. All right, John, we're super excited to have you on the podcast for talking all things athletic training and your career in baseball. I know you have a huge role within the university at Stanford, and we'll get into all that good stuff soon. But first, for our listeners out there who aren't familiar with you and your career path and background, let's take it back from the beginning. Tell us where you're from, were you into sports growing up, and also how you found a passion for athletic training and sports medicine.
Sam, again, thanks for having me. I think it's a pleasure and a privilege and an honor to be on here with the previous guest list that you had. A lot of names that I've either worked with, interacted with, or look at. So to be included with these guys is truly a blessing. So thank you for that. So I grew up in a town in Connecticut, South Windsor. It's about 90 minutes from Boston and an hour for 2 hours from New York. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of Boston Red Sox fans, half Yankees fans, just a lot of Boston, New York fans in general. There's pictures of me at home when I was younger at Fenway Park in a Red Sox shirt, but I grew up a Yankees fan. All my dad's side is from Southern Connecticut, so that's what they were, and that's what I gravitated to. I played a lot of sports growing up. Baseball obviously was my primary sport, but I enjoyed soccer, basketball. We had a pretty big backyard at home. We had a lot of kids around my age in the neighborhood, so they were always over playing flag football or basketball in the driveway or wiffle ball in the driveway. Just anything we could do. We played all the time. We were always outside. And, going through baseball, played all through high school growing up, played soccer growing up through high school, and really wanted to try and give college baseball a try. So was fortunate enough to play 1 year at Northeastern, where I went to college. Had a great time, but ultimately, I kind of knew where I belonged, and I knew I wasn't going to be playing professional baseball. So, I knew at that point it was going to be athletic training. I probably developed my passion for athletic training a little bit differently than most, I think. I was 11 years old, and my dad had found a connection with a guy who was an athletic trainer in one of the local school systems, but he was also on the side. He would come and record your pitching motion, your hitting, your batting swing, your biomechanics. Back when we had those old camcorders, right? The VHS ones, and you plug them up to the TV and replay back. And so my dad found him, connected with him. He came out and set up a meeting, and he videotaped my throwing motion, right? My pitching mechanics from all different angles, and showed me some drills after immediately that day, like, hey, you could try this. We met up about 2-3 weeks later, and he kind of broke down my mechanics and, hey, this is inefficient. Let's work on this. I think you can get stronger here, which was really interesting to me. And that's kind of where I got that passion of, wow, like you can prevent a lot of things. Like I like how the human body moves. That was really interesting to me. And, whether that led to, being a physical therapist. I didn't know what an athletic trainer was before I met this guy.
Yeah.
I was 11 years old, right? What was I worried? I was worried about making the Little League World Series.
Yeah, exactly.
But I continued to work with this guy, Mike Ryan was his name. And, worked with him for about 3-4 years and kind of up until my freshman year of high school. And that's when I started looking a little bit and met with my high school athletic trainer all through high school. Guy's name was Bill LaBruna. Really smart, really fun to be around. Wasn't really an athletic training aide with him. I just, would go in and talk and hang out, especially as I was starting to get into my junior and senior year and trying to figure out where I wanted to be. And talking with Bill and asking him about his life and what he does for, the job was just really interesting to me. And at the time, I knew I wanted to be in sports somehow, and I really liked the body and the movement and the preventative side of things. And that kind of led me to looking at programs in athletic training. I wanted to stay in the Northeast, and I wanted to find a place that would allow me to, play baseball if I could. And Northeastern was that place that had a great athletic training program, and the coaching staff there let me try out for the team and made the team. And, that was kind of my path to Northeastern.
Yeah, that's awesome. And really, I think, different than a lot of our guests on the show and colleagues of yours in college and in the professional ranks, how early you kind of understood your calling and what you want to do. I think people even today, our age, still wondering what they want to do. So it's really awesome that you were able to kind of absorb that information based on like training yourself and figure out that was something you're passionate about. You talked about Northeastern University near Boston or in Boston. A local kid or close to that. Talk about your time there. I know undergrad can be different for so many athletic trainers. Some people, are sure they want to get into the field. Some people are testing it out the first couple of years. Looking back and reflecting on your time at Northeastern, was there anything you might have done differently to get more exposure to different sports, or what are some key takeaways kind of that you took from undergrad?
There was nothing I would ever regret from my time in undergrad.
Okay.
Northeastern was a great program. Northeastern itself is traditionally a 5-year school with built into our program and all the programs at Northeastern, not just athletic training, we have cooperative work experiences. So it's essentially 3 6-month work experiences that we're not in classes. We are out on the job, and we had to apply for a job. We had to interview for the job. There's a database of jobs for each major, and we could look at that database and apply for a job if we wanted one, or they gave us the latitude to go out and create our own co-op job, as we like to call them. So, in addition to our athletic training education with all our clinical rotations, we had 4 semester-long clinical rotations, a year of observation. We had these 3 6-month opportunities, which when looking at programs, that was really attractive to me because there weren't many programs that do that give you that hands-on experience.
Sure.
Hey, you're going to have a semester of upper extremity evaluation and treatment and rehab and just everything upper extremity. Hey, the next 6 months after that class ends, you're going to be out in the field working a job, and you can take those skills that you learned immediately and apply it. And getting that hands-on experience was amazing. I had some great mentors all through undergrad. And the city itself, I mean, how can you not enjoy being in Boston, right? I mean,
Sure.
Great city for sports. It's a great college town. I forget the stat, there's like 50 different colleges in and around Boston. A lot of our clinical rotations weren't even at Northeastern because we had so many other universities in the area. Of my 4 rotations in undergrad, I was only at Northeastern for one of them. I was at a small D3 school for one. I was at Harvard for another, working football for the fall semester. And then I was at a local high school. So just a wide variety of experiences. It really was a second to none education for me, and one that I'm truly grateful to have and have found, and I'm just glad to have worked my way through that all through undergrad.
No, that's great. I think a lot of us probably have things we might change or do differently in the undergrad experience, but obviously you knew at such a young age this was something you want to focus on, so it's cool to hear that you kind of just pushed through that way at undergrad. When you were in college, those first couple of years, getting exposure to different sports, did you know as a baseball player yourself, were you 100% certain that you wanted to be an athletic trainer in baseball, whether that's collegiately or professionally, or do you kind of take your time working other sports and wondering if there might be another sport that might pique your interest as well?
Yeah, so I knew I always wanted to be a baseball athletic trainer, but none of my experiences until my junior year were pushing me to baseball. I worked every other sport you could think. I worked with high school football. I worked with D1 football, basketball, wrestling at times, soccer's. But I never had a baseball rotation, even though that in my mind, especially once I was done with baseball playing at Northeastern, I knew that's what I wanted to be. I had reached out to some teams for some internships in just some short time spans that we had available between, our co-ops and when our summer classes were starting. It just never worked out, and timing was too short and all that stuff. So I didn't really start to focus on baseball until probably the fall of my junior year, when I was during my clinical rotation at Harvard. And they had recently hired an athletic trainer who had just finished a seasonal internship with the Boston Red Sox within the minor league system. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, let me talk to him about that. And we did. And he was just telling me about it and how much fun it was, how much he learned, how great of an experience it was. And hey, can you just give me the information on what I need to do? And he's like, hey, contact this guy, send him this and this, and tell him you know me type deal, right?
Sure.
Or that, we work together now. And so I ended up sending my cover letter, resume, all that stuff to Jim Young, who was at the time the athletic training coordinator with the Red Sox for the minor leagues. And I remember interviewing with him and Pat Sandora, who was the strength and conditioning coordinator at the time,
Sure.
in a hotel lobby in Boston sometime over the winter. They were probably in town for some camps or, meetings and all that. And going into my junior year, I was going to have a co-op starting in July of that year. So I was going to be off working, and I had classes all spring. So ideally what I was thinking was to do a short season internship with the Red Sox, Lowell, Mass, it's close. It would kind of work out. I could do all my summer classes, go do the short season, then go to my co-op experience in the fall of my senior year. And after talking with JY, he said that they would work with me on that, but if baseball was really something I wanted, that I would get a much broader and a much more well-rounded experience doing a full season internship. And then that would make me more attractive in the long run anyway. And I was like, well, that's what they're telling me I got to do. Like, this is what I want to do. So I had to talk to my 3 professors that I had for that spring classes. I talked to my program directors and say, this is an opportunity that doesn't present itself every day. And this is different from my co-op. Like, I was still going to go do that. This was separate. And hey, can I do this? Can you guys work with me? I want to do this. And they all agreed and, made it work. So I started in classes for that semester in January. I left in the middle of February to go down to spring training, and then was with, the minor league spring training until camp broke. And then from there was assigned to work with the low A team, Greenville Drive, and Paul Bouquet, who, as we all know now, is the, head athletic trainer for the Phillies. And that was an experience that was second to none for me. Working with Paul day in and day out was incredible. He was such a great mentor to me then, still is now. Just to see his passion for athletic training and baseball, I learned how to communicate. I learned how to be a professional. I learned the baseball side, the baseball specific side of organization and coordination of so many different aspects. Back then it was Paul and myself. There wasn't another assistant athletic trainer. There wasn't a strength and conditioning professional.
Sure.
It was Paul acting as both, and then me as his assistant to both. And just Paul taking me under his wing and showing me how to do that job, how to do it well, and how to enjoy it, it really set me up for success. And I can't thank Paul enough for that. Not just the passion for athletic training, but Paul's passion for the education side of it. By the end of that internship, I would sit there after every game. I'd watch Paul write his reports. I'd see him call the coordinators and JY, and just to see how he does it. We talk about it. Hey, what information do you include? Why do you include it? And I think by August of that year, he finally said, okay, game's up. John, you call JY tonight. I'm kind of wide-eyed, like, oh shoot, what am I going to do? Right.
Yeah.
But just being with Paul and watching him do it day in and day out, talking through the process, and now then to allow me to do that was, he had prepared me for it. And
Yeah.
I don't think I could have done it without, Paul's guidance in that situation.
Yeah, I think anyone that knows Paul out there who is a PBATS board member, recently elected, incredibly passionate about education and research. And he's always told me, again, along with a number of his colleagues in baseball, getting hands-on experience, getting outside the textbook, putting your hands on athletes, learning how to write a report, that stuff's going to take you so much further. Obviously, you need to know your anatomy. You need to have the basics down as an athletic trainer, but I could see how being thrown in the fire, you're essentially, travel secretary and therapist and, nutritionist at that level back in the day, like you mentioned, John. It's definitely a whirlwind. So I could assume how eye-opening that could have been for you. You mentioned Paul being a big mentor of yours throughout your career. With the other talented athletic trainers you've been able to work with, do you find there's a certain skill set or personality trait that leads to big time success in the world of athletic training in baseball?
A lot of the athletic trainers I look up to and have seen be successful in their respective sport role, not just in baseball, everyone's inquisitive, right? Everyone's always looking for answers. They're always looking to get better. If they don't know a solution or an answer to something, they're going to go find it. They're going to seek it out. And it's that constant, almost yearning for education and just continual learning, right? And I guess you can call it complacency. No one gets complacent, right? There's a quote from a movie called The Greatest Showman. I'm sure, plenty of people have seen it, but in it, one of the guys says, comfort, the enemy of progress. And to me, that I remember watching the movie and hearing that quote, and I just thought that applies to all of us as athletic trainers, and especially the most successful ones that I've been around. The minute you become complacent in what we do, you're doing a disservice not only to yourself, but the student athletes or professional athletes you work with. And if you're not going to give them the best care that they deserve. We always need to be finding, how can I get this guy better? How can I get this girl better? And if we're not doing that, it's almost like you lose your passion for athletic training at that point.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great answer. I think, all the athletic trainers and as PBATS members are very curious, always want the latest research, always want to know what's going on and how they can improve. And especially in the off season, as we talk to guys now, it's not just go on vacation. It's how can we do better next year? I think that's hugely important. Well, John, I want to shift gears a bit and talk more about your career and how you ended up at Stanford where you are now. So I know after graduation, you mentioned you moved on to Middle Tennessee State as a graduate assistant athletic trainer working in baseball. Was that always the plan? Graduate assistantship somewhere else for a baseball team after you finished undergrad?
It was the plan. I think it took a while for me to find that. I knew I always wanted to go to the graduate assistant route because to work at the university level at the time, everyone always told me, you need a master's, you need a master's, you need a master's. So let me find something that's going to get me a master's. And I wanted a baseball experience, so that was my first search. And I looked all over the country, West Coast, South, Midwest, trying to find something. And didn't find any takers, or it wasn't the right fit to start, or didn't get responses back. And so I started branching out. Now I just want to get a master's. Maybe it's I want a big, now Power 4, Power 5 school. So let me look at the biggest names you could think of in college sports and start applying there. And one of my mentors at the time ended up becoming the head athletic trainer for football at Middle Tennessee State, Robbie Stewart. And I had known Robbie when he was an assistant athletic trainer with football at Clemson. And that was one of my co-op experiences in undergrad. I spent 6 months at Clemson working track and field in the spring. Helped out with baseball a little bit, but mainly assigned to track and field. And so when I was looking for grad school at the time, Robbie had just taken the job as the head athletic trainer for football at Middle Tennessee State. And he reached out to me and knew I wanted some baseball experience and they had a baseball GA position and asked, would you be interested in, looking at Middle Tennessee State? I said, sure, why not? It's baseball. It's what I wanted. I knew nothing about Middle Tennessee State. But I flew down there, I interviewed with the staff, and I ended up getting the graduate assistantship. And I worked baseball for 2 years there.
No, and obviously a different geography, different place in the country, you've probably never been, different level, more responsibility. I'm sure all very valuable stuff for you. When you finished up at Middle Tennessee State, you made the leap to head west to Santa Clara University, focusing on coverage for baseball and women's golf. Talk about adding more responsibility to your plate at that job, working with baseball and women's golf, and kind of how it goes working, and managing different sports that aren't that similar, and what you kind of took from that experience.
It was a nice change of pace. Anyone who works in baseball knows it's a grind, day in and day out. And with collegiate baseball, we don't play until the spring, and then we've got the longest season out there. So you get in the fall, and all you do is practice and drill and practice and drill and practice and drill. So to get out of that grind for a little bit and get to know other athletes outside of your baseball team, it's a nice change of pace. They have completely different stories than, most baseball players, student athletes. Every baseball player wants to be a professional baseball player.
Yeah.
A lot of times other sports aren't going to have those opportunities presented to them. So they're going to be thinking about, what am I going to do after I graduate? What am I going to do for this summer internship? And when you're at that collegiate level, and not just at Santa Clara or Stanford, but we're not just a baseball athletic trainer. We're an athletic trainer first who provides services to baseball, who provides services to women's golf. It gets your mind thinking outside of baseball. How does the body work with this sport, and what are the demands on this sport, or these athletes? And when you're at this level, we're here to serve all of our student athletes, not just our baseball team, or not just our soccer team or our volleyball team. We are all in it together, and we all have to pitch in.
And one interesting note there, you're available to more than just the teams you cover on an everyday basis. How often are you guys working with the athletic trainers who cover different sports who you may not be on the field with, but you probably are in the athletic training room with?
So at Stanford right now, we have a staff of 25 athletic trainers, and we have one athletic training room. So we have 36 sports, and we all operate out of one athletic training room. We have some satellite facilities, and to be fair, I think our baseball stadium has the best one, which is great. I can operate fully out of there if I needed to. But when you're in an athletic training facility of 25 athletic trainers, 36 sports, it gets busy, and there's a lot going on, but there's a lot to learn from other people. If I have a question, or if I'm having an issue with how to treat a certain injury, or I'm having a difficult case, but I know someone on my staff has experience with that, or just has a different technique, I'm going to go seek them out, right? And just the amount of people with our backgrounds and different educations is a huge resource that we have at our disposal. And it's gets a little hectic at times. I mean, 25 people in one space is, gets busy.
Sure.
But when you have a good staff and you have fun doing it, there's a lot to learn from everyone too.
And John, I know after 6 years in Santa Clara, which is probably super special to you, you made the move over to Stanford, where you are now currently. How hard was the decision to make that move after being somewhere and being established somewhere for so long, and kind of moving into an even more probably pressure-filled Power 5 job? Stanford baseball, I mean, it's a legendary program. Talk about what went into your decision to kind of make that move.
It was the right place at the right time, and I knew the right people. One of my now current colleagues, actually a few of them, had connections with Santa Clara.
Okay.
And when I heard that they had a baseball position opening up, they reached out, and we just started talking a little bit, and they said if I was interested in moving, that I should apply. And for me, I didn't have to move. I didn't have to leave the area. It was just another 25 minutes up the road. And I thought, why not? Right. It was, like you said, it's Stanford. It's a legendary program. You know, Coach Marquez was the head coach here for 41 years. And the new coach that came in, Coach Dave Esker, had just taken over. And to have that opportunity to work with Coach Esker and then the rest of the staff that he brought in, how do you say no? But then that's just the baseball side of it, right? Then to work with Stanford University, Stanford Healthcare, Stanford Medicine. Again, that's not an opportunity that presents itself every day. And sure. I interviewed and it was a good fit. And next thing you know, I accepted the job and, I've been here now 8 years.
John, I know you mentioned the number of athletic trainers at Stanford University in general. Talk about the people that work with the baseball staff and kind of how, you guys are aligned and what a staff looks like for Stanford baseball.
So with Stanford baseball, there's obviously myself, and I'm the primary baseball athletic trainer with our team. We have our sports performance coach, Gunnar Cederberg, who's, I think, one of the best in the game, if not the best. And I know that's being biased, but he really is. We have our team physical therapist, Debbie Wasaki, who's incredible, handles all our post-surgical cases, long-term rehabs, difficult cases. Our team physician, Dr. Freehill, who's also the head team physician for the Oakland Athletics now.
Yeah.
We have our team dietitian, team sports psychologist. We have our biomechanist, sports scientist, Bryson Nakamura, who's been a great resource, not only for Dr. Freehill from the research standpoint, but for myself and our entire baseball staff, and just getting to know the analytics side and the biomechanics aspect of baseball a lot more than we ever had. In season, we have our massage therapists that come in once a week and handle some of the massage recovery for guys. On off days after our travel trips or home weekends. And, we all have to be in alignment, right? There's constant communication between myself and Gunnar and Deb. And we've got email chains, text message threads, Slack channels between the three of us, making sure that we're all in alignment on, hey, if these are the injured guys, what's our progression? What are we doing in here? What are we doing in PT? And then what can we add in sports performance? What can I do with them for, on the athletic training side? And we all work together, because at the end of the day, we just want these kids and these student athletes back as safely and quickly as possible. And the sooner they're back, the more availability that our coaches have, right?
Yeah. And
Gunnar and I always say that our job as a sports performance coach and athletic trainer is to make our coaches' jobs difficult. And in that, we mean we want as many players available to them, so they have to make the tough decisions on who to play. And, fortunately for the past 4 or 5 years, it's been good, right? We've been able to have a lot of our guys available to the coaches. And that's something that Gunnar and I really pride ourselves on.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Give them a tough decision with a full roster. I've never heard that before. That's a great explanation of doing a great job, you and your staff there. Well, John, one thing I don't think a lot of our listeners might know is, what does a typical week in season look like for you? So I know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, whether you're traveling or at home, prepping for a road trip, packing trunks, loading stuff up. Walk us through an in-season, conference series starting Friday night. What does that look like for the athletic training staff?
For us, this year it's going to be a little different. This year it involves the ACC travel for us. We're used to the Pac-12 travel, staying on the West Coast, leave the day before a game, get to our hotel, check in, change, go to the field, light practice on Thursday nights, and then wake up the next day and get ready for the weekend series. This year it's going to be different for us. We're leaving on Wednesdays to fly back east. We have 5 trips to the East Coast this year, and we're going to leave on Wednesday. And one of the things that we discussed at length as a staff was, how are we best going to prepare our guys for this transition to the East Coast? How are we going to prepare them from a recovery standpoint, from a sleep standpoint? Do we need to keep them on East Coast time versus West Coast time? And how do we, acclimatize them to that East Coast time if that's what we're going to do? And we had to sit down as a staff and figure out what was going to work best for us. So now this year, it's when we travel on the road, we'll fly Wednesday, we'll get wherever we're going Wednesday night and either have a small workout, a small little kind of activation session. The next morning, Thursdays, now just a complete not off day for us, but we're in our location. So we'll have a team lift in the morning, early afternoon. We'll go practice in the evening whenever we can get on the field and come back. We'll fit treatments and rehabs in there at some point. And then Friday's game day. So on the road, we'll have a team lift in the morning. I'll do some treatments pregame, probably around postgame or after pregame lunch. Open up treatment windows for like an hour and a half before we leave for the field, and then get to the field and start prepping for the game. I'll do a little bit more treatment there as I can, and then it's game time, right? And sit back, hope nothing happens. Just want to sit back and enjoy a game.
Yeah.
Game's over, come back to the hotel and start entering notes for the day. And I'll usually do a little bit of treatment after the game while we're eating our post-game meal on acute needs that come up. And then, we stay there through the weekend, repeat that for the next 2 days. When we come back on Sunday nights, we're getting back pretty late, sometimes 12:30, 1:30 in the morning. And one of the things that I've started doing is I just unpack everything that night when I get back to campus.
Okay.
I may not see guys when I get home or when I see them the next day, but if I have everything packed away in a bag, there might be something that those guys need. So I take an extra 20 minutes and I unpack all our recovery stuff. And that way I know, hey, if I don't see a guy, he's got everything he needs. And it's something that I've talked to Bryson about, our sports scientist, biomechanist. And I was explaining it to him one day and he goes, it's a way to organize your house in order to handle the chaos, right? Because if you're not organized for the next day and stuff's going to come up, something's going to fall through the cracks.
Yep.
But if I can handle what I need to do and it's ready to go, hey, that off day, I'm ready to handle whatever gets thrown at me, whether it's an acute injury that no one told me about or appointments and scheduling and, coordination of all those other things that we need to do.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting to hear from you in terms of the conference realignment and how that, no one ever thinks how that impacts the athletic trainer, getting his players on a certain schedule for sleep or for just feeling better and getting the body where it needs to be. Well, John, to add on to that previous question, I know you mentioned a ton of different aspects of the job. I know a lot of athletic trainers have told me their favorite part of the job is getting an injured player back on the field successfully, keeping them healthy. What's kind of one of your favorite aspects of the job in kind of big time Power 5 conference baseball?
There's two different sides of the job, I think, for me. And one is the baseball side. I really do enjoy the grind of the season. And I tell any student athletic trainer I get who comes through Stanford that if you don't love baseball, you better come ready to learn something. And I kind of joke about it, but baseball, and let's be honest, baseball by and large can be boring, right? It's long games. Hopefully nothing happens. But if you don't love baseball, it can be arduous. It can be long and tedious and just overwhelming at times, right? I really enjoy solving the puzzle. I really like the baseball side of athletic training because we can work on guys, right? We have time to fix them for the entire season. We're working on correctives. We're working on preventative care. And it's not just, oh yeah, well, let's throw a cast on it and then you can play in 1 week, right? Like you can in some other sports. We don't have that luxury and that affordability. Just looking at everything from a puzzle, it's really interesting to me, and I've always enjoyed that. I love talking baseball with my coaches, and Bryson and Gunner, and some of the best conversations and most fruitful conversations I've had are just when I'm down there watching bullpens and we're standing back there and our pitching coach is talking with the pitcher about, hey, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And I hear that and I'm trying to put it into athletic training words for myself. Like, what does that mean? Like, oh, you're not getting into your back leg. Well, maybe that means I need to work on, from my standpoint, a little bit of single leg stability work or, glute strengthening. Maybe I'll get into a conversation with Bryson about, pitching mechanics and what it's doing to someone's pitch arsenal, right? And just that constant collaboration, when you have people with like-minded thought processes, it's incredible. And there's some of the most fun conversations I've ever had, but I've learned a ton from those conversations as well, not only in what the coaches are telling the student athletes, but then how I can then take what the coach is telling the student athlete and how I can then help make the student athlete better for what the coach wants. Maybe the coach is asking that student athlete to do something that he physically can't do. It's my job and sports performance to go and look at that and say, okay, coach is asking you to do this. How can we help you get to do that? It's just an incredible experience when you have those conversations, and it's eye-opening. On the athletic training side, aside from baseball, like I said, we have 25 athletic trainers at Stanford, and I really enjoy now, as I've gotten a little bit older in the profession. I'm not one of the spring chickens here anymore. I like helping the younger staff. I like floating through the different offices.
Yeah.
We have 3 people in an office and we've got 9, 10 offices, right? And I like floating through the offices, checking in with people, seeing how they're doing, and just having conversations with them, right? Checking in on them. I think that's really important. And it's kind of my way of keeping tabs on our staff, keeping those connections and just having an eyesight on everyone. I feel like I've had a lot of experience and I can help a younger athletic trainer navigate a difficult situation that maybe in a way that they hadn't thought of yet. I think as we get older in the profession, that's a really good way for us to give back, right?
Yeah, I think paying it forward and giving back is an essential part of being an athletic trainer. From anyone, who's been in the profession, know that you need somebody to be on your side and get you where you're going. Well, John, I'm wondering, you talk so much about the travel and the grind and all that. You guys are on the road a lot now, going to the East Coast, as you mentioned, as part of the ACC. Outside of your players, what do you do to take care of yourself mentally? A lot of our guys are running in the morning in a certain city or working out, getting just a mental break. What do you do to kind of take care of yourself so when you get to the park, you're ready to take care of other people?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sam. I first got to start off by mentioning our families, right?
Of course.
If our travel is really robust, we're gone a long time, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention my wife, Amanda, and the support that I get from her and that all our significant others give all the athletic trainers out there, right? We commit to a lifestyle as an athletic trainer, and our significant others commit to this lifestyle with us. And without that support, we can't do what we do. So, kudos to her, and obviously thank you to that. Not only to her, but to all the significant others out there that allow us to do what we do and enjoy doing what we're doing. There's actually a kind of funny story is when my wife and I started dating, she made it through one college baseball season. I was like, oh, all right, that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, not bad.
It's not bad. And then we were still dating and she made it through a second college baseball season. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know she doesn't really, like college baseball that much, but cool. And after she made it through that third college baseball season of dating me and me never being around on weekends, or me can't go to family events, or I can't hang out with friends, it was like, okay, I think we found the one. Like, let's go.
Yeah, no doubt.
So it was like kind of after that third season, I'm like, okay, yeah, Amanda's the one. But yeah, we can't do this without our families. For me on the road, I like to get up early. I go for a walk on the treadmill. I pretend like I'm walking my dog. That's something I do at home whenever I have the time in the mornings before I go to work. So I'll pop on the treadmill, listen to some music, you know, 45 minutes to an hour. Usually Gunner's in there doing a workout himself. And we kind of monopolize the facility that we have at a weight room sometimes. After that, just go down, have a quick breakfast, go back up to the hotel room after that. At that point, I'll do a little bit of admin work that I have, from the job, and anything I need to take care of for our department. After that, I do like to just go walk around and explore different cities, seeing different sites or just even getting outside, right? Get a little sunlight.
Yeah.
On the road, it's easy to just get cooped up in a hotel and watch TV. And for me, it's just important not to do that. Like, let me go out for a walk. Let me go see, maybe I'll go find an ice cream shop or something. I just like getting outside. Gets me a little bit of time to myself, my thoughts, before I then have to come back either for that team lift or pregame meal and, pregame treatments, and then it's go time. So, I just kind of like to get away a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's a similar mindset to many of our PBATS members who just need to get outside, take some time away from what you do every day because you guys are so busy. Well, John, we really appreciate you joining the show, sharing all that information that has not yet been covered on Inside Athletic Training from the college level. To wrap up today's episode, we're going to finish with a quick Q&A segment called Extra Bases. So I'm going to ask you 4 quick questions and let you kind of share some insight with our audience about your favorite things about what you do.
Sure.
So we'll kick it off at first base. You're at like we said, amazing program in Stanford, great resources, great facilities. Talk about your favorite athletic training room to work in outside of your home base at Stanford.
From a visiting standpoint, not many baseball facilities in college have visiting athletic training rooms. So, unlike a lot of the previous guests who can say like, oh yeah, we love Truist Field or any of that. Like, I can't say that. So I'll go more towards the athletic training rooms just in general that I've seen that I've liked. Yeah. University of Oregon has a really nice athletic training room.
Okay.
And just, they've got some, cool lighting, cool floors.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's Oregon. It's branded out with O's everywhere and duck rings.
They do it right.
And it's, they did it right. It looks really cool. Every time I go up there, I'm like, man, that's really sweet. I like that. So I obviously haven't seen many of the ACC schools in their facilities, so I'm sure I'm going to be plenty impressed with those. But from the ones I've seen, Oregon and just how they brand it, I'm a big branding snob. I think that's great.
Yeah, they do a great job. Anyone that watches any college sports sees Oregon, and it's different, and it's better, and it's just awesome. Well, moving on to second base here. You guys have an awesome vantage point, very unique to anyone. You're in the dugout for games. College baseball stadiums are amazing. The atmosphere from LSU to Notre Dame to out there by you guys, Stanford, Cal, really cool atmospheres. What do you think is the favorite stadium you've sat in a dugout for a game for?
Oh, that's easy. Charles Schwab Field in Omaha. Hey, when you're there, like, you feel like you've made it, right?
For sure.
And, Curtis Self there, he, the Creighton Baseball Athletic Trainer is the host. He does a great job. And being fortunate enough to go back 3 straight years, makes you really enjoy that experience. And you stand on that rail, you look around, and you just see 20-something thousand fans, and it's incredible. I mean, it's a great vantage point. Omaha's a great downtown, and just they do it right in Omaha. I mean, it's amazing. If not Omaha, because I feel like that would be on every college baseball players list. You got to go BYU.
Okay.
They have a beautiful backdrop. You're sitting in the first base dugout and you look out past the outfield wall, and there are just snow-capped mountains so close that you feel like you could throw a baseball in, and just really beautiful setting. That, to me, that's it. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I urge anyone out there who hasn't Googled BYU baseball stadium. I'm looking at it right now, just to refresh my memory. Mountains are incredible against the blue Y behind the plate. It almost resembles like what you would see at Coors Field or Anaheim with the mountains. Really awesome place there. Well, John, moving on to third base, you get to see some really cool places, some awesome campuses, really cool cities. Do you have a favorite city or a campus that you visit on the road?
Well, now that I don't work there anymore, I can say Santa Clara as my most beautiful campus. The architecture is great. It's small, but it's so fun to just walk through campus and see the buildings, and it's so green and lush and everything. Beautiful campus. If no one's ever been, and you're in the area, go walk campus. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Mm. Obviously, I haven't seen many of the ACC schools, so I'm sure they'll climb up my rankings list a little bit. But from a city, I really enjoy going to Seattle when we play University of Washington. As long as it's not cold and rainy, it's, if we can do an April or May series there, it's beautiful. Tempe and Scottsdale to go down and play, Arizona State, or during the Pac-12 tournament. You can't beat the vibes down there or the weather. So yeah, Seattle and probably Tempe, Scottsdale for me.
Yeah, you're aligned with many of the PBATS members, including Jamie Reed from the Rangers, who was on, I believe, last week, and mentioned Seattle is the best place to go, especially to get a reprieve from the Texas heat in the summer for him. Well, John, moving on to home plate, last question for today. You've been in this profession for a long time, super accomplished in the game, in baseball specifically. Did you ever have a welcome to like professional athletic training moment where you either learned something new or saw something crazy or something that stood out and kind of made you feel like you've arrived on the scene?
I've got two. One was from early on in my career, and one is a little bit more recent. And the first one was from grad school and getting to meet Dr. Andrews for the first time.
Yeah.
Being at Middle Tennessee, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, we were a 2-3 hour drive from Birmingham, and our head coach at the time really wanted our guys to go see Dr. Andrews if they had elbow or shoulder issues. So we'd make the drive down and thinking to myself, oh, it's going to be some resident or fellow come in. And sure enough, Dr. Andrews comes in and has the best bedside manner I've ever seen, really treats the patient like that's his only care for that moment. And just an incredible experience to see and witness, and then to meet Dr. Andrews. Really special for me. The second one would be now seeing some of my former student athletes make their professional debuts. I think back to some of my Santa Clara guys who, once I left and followed their careers and they made their major league debut. It's really cool to watch and just know that I've played a little role in their journey to the top, right? Some of them maybe a little bit bigger if they needed a big rehab or, a lot of care, but just knowing that I was there along the way is really special. And that's, something I don't take for granted either. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is really interesting to me as talking to you as in the college setting is you get to see much like kind of a guy moving up from single A who you're with to making it to the big leagues, but you get that same kind of feeling. You see guys go in the draft and maybe you're talking to somebody about their injury history, and when they're, on their way up to the big leagues, got to be super cool for you and rewarding. Well, John, thanks so much for joining the show today. Always appreciate your time, you sharing your story, your history in the game. And as you guys get started pretty soon here, we wish you and your staff at Stanford nothing but the best of luck.
Awesome. Sam, thanks again for having me. This was great. And like I said, just an honor to be here and, be in your lineup, given everyone that's come before me.
Thank you for listening to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. For more information about athletic training or PBATS, visit pbats.com. See you next time.